Okay. It looks like these are the paintings I'm looking for. It's a good thing I ignored those stupid ass ghosts. Look at these. These things must be worth a fortune. With how scalping is on video games right now, who knows how much these paintings are fucking worth. Probably a small fucking fortune. Yeah! Hello, everyone, and welcome. Ever have those pests that can't stop bothering you? Well, today we're going to have to put that to its best and just ignore them. So, Just Ignore Them is a point-and-click style game. We are playing through the Vita physical build from Affiliation, which came bundled with My Big Sister, which we will talk about at another time. Just Ignore Them is a pretty short title, made by a small team of people, and as far as I can tell, one of the really early titles they ever worked on. Looking at some of the later stuff, including My Big Sister, like between this and going to My Big Sister was a pretty big difference in how a lot of the design and that went. But this is a pretty simple style point click game. You have a cursor you control with your analog stick and interacting and using button for your items in your inventory. You're capable of saving and loading basically whenever with that in a more classic point click style-esque game. You play as Mark during his childhood originally, and then fast forward to his adulthood, seeing his tragic past and his running away from a bunch of spectral boogeymen that haunt him from his childhood to his adult life, trying to figure out what they are and how to stop them as they murder and kill everyone around him while continuing to follow him. This is a small title, and I try not to be super rough, but at the same time, I have to also, it's a review. So, I gotta also be honest to a certain extent, too. The game is a bit rough. As far as let me double check here, I believe he said it was made using a basically equivalent of an RPG Maker, but for adventure games in Itrio's comments. It used a game engine called Adventure Game Studio. So, it was likely a very beginner project, I imagine. Now, this build on the Vita does have some issues. There are a few moments where there were dialogue boxes that come up that had no dialogue in them. It only happened during one scene, so it wasn't a super common thing, but a bit of an oddity. There's also a very strange door on the airplane scene that I don't know if that was intentional or not. It's kind of awkward, but you can get through it. There are a few differences between the Vita version and the PC version as well. The big difference is the profile pictures when talking's happening. Now, there might be some other minor differences. I haven't really watched a playthrough of the PC version, but that's like if you were to look up screenshots of the PC version and the Vita version, that would be something you will easily tell because it is a very different style of how the characters look when they're talking. I'd say the Vita version looks better to a certain extent, but feels not survival horror like, if that makes sense. While the style they have in the PC version is a lot more rough, I feel like it presents to the aesthetic of being a spooky game a lot better. Characters have a lot more bludgeon looking eyes. It's kind of like Mark kind of makes me feel like he would be James in an 8-bit style from how his face looks in the PC version. They have a much more cutesy looking version in the Vita version. Aesthetically, you're likely going to have differences on what you like or don't like between the two. I didn't really encounter anything that stopped me from finishing the game or anything. So ultimately, the game is finishable. I was able to get the true ending, and there is a little Easter egg of finding tapes that add a little bit more to the story. And boy, does the story get really fucking weird by the end of it. But being one of the developers' early games, I would have to say it does suffer a little bit of, again, not to be mean, but a kind of an amateur feeling to some of the dialogue. And, like, you get a partner in the game, and it's, to me, it's kind of cringy interactions with her. Like, very, very, very interactions. There's a few funny things, but I found it kind of cringy myself, to be quite honest. Like, the chemistry just felt very forced and awkward. But that's just how I viewed it myself. It's not the end of the world. It's only not yet. Anyway, the game is just kind of rough. From what I can see and tell, it seems to be connected to my big sister and possibly overall connected to several of the other titles, since the whole kind of way the monsters' faces look, it seems to be a reoccurring thing in a lot of the titles. So I'm not sure how interconnected they are. So as a series, it might be interesting to check out. Just ignore them if you had checked out some of the other titles. But as a experience by itself, I don't feel like it's amazing or anything, to be honest. It's just, it exists. It's something simple and short. It's a cheap game digitally, so it's not a long game or anything, but I feel like there are better things you could spend your money on myself. Digitally on PC, it's $3.99, and on consoles, which is on Switch, PS4, Vita, and Xbox One, for $4.99. Just a dollar more. But for the physical version that comes with my big sister that came from PlayAsia on the Vita, that was, what was it again? Was it 39 or 34? Let me look here again. It was $34.99, which is long sold out. It came out back in 2021. Oh boy, it's been a while. It's kind of hard to recommend, honestly, even though it's really cheap. I feel like, honestly, value-wise, on how rough the game feels to me, it feels more like a, I'd hate to say it, $1.99 experience myself. Now, to be fair, on PC, this came out a long time ago. This came out in 2017. It's not ancient, but in like PC terms, like considering how many games come out every fucking day, that's probably considered pretty fucking old for a PC game. So, understandably, I'm looking at as like somebody playing a older title, and again, this is a bunch of newer people. That it's not like there's some giant AAA market. That I do want to stress that I will have a lot more nicer things to say about the aesthetics and that of my big sister, but sadly, I will have worse technical problems. And oh boy, there were worse technical problems in that version. That's going to have a lot of shit to list out there. But at the end of the day, just ignore them. Did function for me. Like I said, there is a spot where there was dialogue boxes that had no dialogue. At one scene was kind of weird, but other than that, was able to progress through the game, get the good ending and that. So I didn't have any problems seeing the game to its end. But I wouldn't say it was worthwhile or worth the journey there myself. I also thought this is just a game design kind of thing myself. The child arc, as I mentioned, you start as a child and then go to adulthood for the rest of the game. But as a child, there were several like death traps. Like, you interact with something, you die, game over. It's very clock tower, game over, and then you start out back like you just entered the room again, and can continue forward from that. I thought it was very odd how in the Child Arc there was a lot of those where you just get killed and shit, and then the rest of the game and this adulthood you don't have that. You just figuring out how to keep going forward. There were different outcomes to a few dialogue things, but ultimately, in a Telltale-esque way, the game continues forward to the same conclusion, or in this game's case, two conclusions you can get at the end of the game. There is something that will affect what ending you get, and other than that, everything else is just to see different outcomes of the situation you're going through. So it was kind of weird that only during the Child Arc there was that. I obviously, having several deaths during the Child Arc, I was expecting deadly things to still happen, but they don't. It just fades into the background, even though, like, during the airplane scene, things get kind of dicey. There's still no, like, kill triggers. Nothing fucking kills you. If you try, usually the killer will be like, I'm not going in now. So it's just kind of weird that it went from that way to dropping off the face of the earth. But just me 2 cents on that being kind of odd. At the end of the day, if you've seen some of the other developers' games, it might be worth checking out. Just ignore them. But if you're looking for an entry point, I don't think this is probably a good starting point. Probably only a good thing to check out if you're wanting to see more of the overarching story of his titles. Honestly, I find it hard to recommend this title. There's a lot of other things you could go and get. And it was, like I said, $34.99 for 2 of these games, which the other one's a technical mess when it comes to the end game. And oh boy, that's going to be an interesting subject matter when we get into that. But even with it, like, I think, I don't know how many of his games, his, hers, they, them, the team, how many people are involved with this game, games are on the Vita, but honestly, if there was more, I think they should have bundled more of them together, because these 2 games, this one's $3.99 on PC, my big sister's $5.99 on PC, tough sale. If you are to check them out, though, I would recommend getting the Itch.io versions, because they are free, but they are on Steam if that's your cup of tea as well. And those are my thoughts on Just Ignore Them. The value, like I said, I think it's hard to really go more than $1.99 myself, to be quite honest. I know $3.99 is cheap, but I just don't feel like you get enough for $4, and it just has a very amateur feel to it. And I'm sorry, but it's just how it feels to me. It just feels very noobish, and everyone's got to start somewhere. And like I said, I will have a lot nicer things to say about the design choices in that when we go to My Big Sister, because there were a lot of nicer improvements, and I think the game dev was going in a nicer direction at giving better aesthetic story in that title. But everyone's got to start somewhere. And sometimes that beginning point doesn't always start out as $1 million idea. So, nothing against you. But those are my thoughts on Just Ignore Them. So, if you feel like you learned anything interesting at all, feel free to leave a like. And if you feel like you learned nothing at all, feel free to leave a dislike. And let's get into the spoilers real quick, because I did say the ending's pretty fucking weird. And it is fucking weird. Besides the odd chemistry between the 2 main characters, you basically find out so these things following the main character were man-made using insane experiments, and one of them's his father. And that's supposedly why they're stalking him. And basically, at the end, you have an option to save your companion or to basically have her be host of your mother, which is just really bizarre to me. It just what? It's very strange indeed. It's just very fucking weird to me. And like I said, in my big sister, there seems to be a connection to these experiments. So I don't know if I'll ever check out this dev's other games. If I do, I'll be getting the Itrio versions likely, unless we get something similar to this, and hopefully for a better price, honestly. Because honestly, even doing $19.99 on this physically is just really pushing it. But yeah, you can be obviously kinder to the PC digital prices or even the console digital prices, but the physical version is just ungodfully overpriced as hell. Like, oh my goodness. Way too much. Way too much. But it is what it is. And that's my thoughts on Just Ignore Them. So, next time, when we check out this title, we'll be talking about My Big Sister, but I think I'll make that the next review. Kind of try and, not always have a bunch of iffy titles all straight in a row. So next title I'm going to try and be one of the more interesting titles we played more recently. But figured we'd get one of the more iffier titles out, because played this back in October and it's been in the lineup for a while. So we'll get back to it with My Big Sister next time. Thank you for checking out the review. Until next time, be safe and check out. Don't check your closet too often. There might be a boogeyman.